I don't think there's any coincidence that over the last year and a half, the most well-funded and more importantly, well-informed traders on the globe, the central banks, have bought more gold than at any time in history. And over the last 9 months, those numbers are up 14% over last year, which was the biggest accumulation in history. They bought 800 tons already over the first 9 months. So don't do what the media or the talking heads are saying. Do what they're doing, and you have to dig to see it. But the biggest, most well-funded, well-informed, influential traders on the globe are quietly using the suppression of the Western paper markets to support an illusion of dollar supremacy and the illusion of bond stability to de-dollarize and accumulate gold and silver. And it will be, remember, what did the Bank of International Settlements say in 2019? Oh, yeah. It's the only other tier one reserve asset in the world. Riskless. So the central banks are saying, let's get rid of dollars and get the only other tier one because we've destroyed the credibility of fiat currency. And if we're going to do this and use blockchain, well, there's no better way to do it than anchor it to gold and show the whole world. We don't need to make it redeemable. Maybe we only have 10% of every new currency unit anchored to gold, held on a distributed ledger, have it audited. Everyone can see it, the veracity and the mutability of it. And you now have immediately installed trust and confidence in a system that has none. You do what the biggest money in the world is doing. I sell gold and silver. I've been accumulating it myself every 2 weeks for 34 years. That was a promise I made my father when I started this company. To me, it's wealth. It is not an investment. You buy it to get out of the system, to get out of the way of what is coming, whether it be money in a banking system that is hanging on by a thread, or just being in dollars or any traditional assets that are all inversely correlated to a massive shock in interest rates that I think is coming. So anyways, what do? I think you get out of debt, first and foremost, best you can. Let the laws of compounding work for you instead of against you. And if you're not able to do that all at once, then you pay yourself first no matter what. I don't care if it's an ounce of silver every paycheck. That was the promise I made to my father. He said, you'll buy something every 2 weeks or I'll fire you. That was 34 years ago. I've owned the company for 2 decades outright, but I've honored my promise to him. Every 2 weeks for 34 years, I bought something not to invest, but it is my wealth. And I let the laws of compounding work for me instead of against me. I don't think we are at the point of hoping this goes away. I think you have to realize there's a high probability that there is going to be some difficult times ahead, especially if we lose the petrodollar. And when that happens, traditional assets are in trouble. So what do? You buy gold and silver not to get wealthy. You buy it because it is wealth. You own enough of it, maybe you're wealthy. But more importantly, you have taken yourself out of harm's way and you own something that has been considered wealth for 5,000 years. To me, that's what I would advise my very best friend or my son or my daughter or anyone that I cared about or a client. And I mean it to my soul. And I hope I'm wrong. People who buy crypto want to get rich. People who buy gold don't want to lose what they've accumulated. So if you want to bring the two together, if you're in crypto and you make profits, siphon it off and put it in gold and leave your original principle there. Let it ride up again, put your profit in gold and silver. Same thing. That's how you build wealth while keeping your growth position intact. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. Much like the United States not being united, I would like to see the crypto community and the metals community be united. We're doing things for the same reason in terms of the fundamentals of the fiat system. And, again, I think the only divergence is one is about wealth creation and the other about wealth preservation. But there's room for the two of them on the same couch, and they can speak to each other cordially and say, hey, we can do this together and even be stronger. What is gold again? The only other tier one asset. What is the ratio price-wise? Let's say it's 80-1 right now. It's coming out of the ground, or it came out of the ground for 5,000 years in terms of a geologic ratio at 16-1. Silver is 16 times more abundant in the earth than is gold. It's now 7-1. My buddy Keith Neumeyer, the CEO of First Majestic, one of the biggest mining companies in the world, has told me 10 times personally and tells the world all the time in his videos publicly, it's coming out of the ground at 7-1. It's found like your skin is epidermis. Silver is found in nature in a form called epithermal, very near the surface. Big deposits were found decades ago. So if you realize that for 5,000 years, that the price and the geologic ratio was 16-1. As we got near the Industrial Revolution, gold's role as money and silver's role as an industrial metal. And because of logistics, while the mining ratio stayed the same, the price ratio has averaged over the last 150 years roughly 40, 42 to 1 price wise. But here's the thing, it's now coming out of the ground at 7 to 1. So that geologic ratio has been cut in half. Arguably, then, so should the price ratio, should be like 20 to 1. But here's the thing, all of the silver that's been accumulated over the last 75 years and used in industrial applications or military applications, or electronics or anything that conducts electricity, along with the renaissance it's experienced in monetary demand, including the fact that last year we had over a 200 million ounce shortfall in supply versus demand, including in the fact that of a billion ounces mined last year, where 1.2 billion plus were demanded, only 350 million came from companies mining silver because it's harder and harder and harder and harder and harder to find. 65% of the silver that came to market was either through recycling or companies stumbling across it. Oh, look, we found some silver while we were digging for tin. And so it's a situation where it's depleting in nature, it's increasing in industrial and military uses, it's experienced a monetary renaissance, and yet it's priced at 80 to 1. Well, something ain't right here. You could argue that it's the best opportunity in the world, whereby if you want to ultimately end up in gold, the only tier 1 asset, you don't want to sell all your silver, but you buy silver at an 80 to 1 ratio. And if all it does is get to its 200-year average of roughly 40 to 1, you double when you switch back into gold. So when you talk about opportunity and potential, not only could we see silver really appreciate because it's been held down and it's below its half of its 1980 peak, but trading it back into gold, it doesn't even matter what the price is, it's what the ratio is. And when it's coming out of the ground at 7 to 1 and it's priced at 80 plus to 1 and the demand for it is increasing and the supply is decreasing, it's about as good of an opportunity as you will ever find ever in investing with virtually no downside risk. I think it's about as good of an investment opportunity as you will ever find. But you will find I rarely say the word investment when we talk about gold and silver. It's wealth. I'm a big fan of the term logarithmic decay. You can visualize that by being on a raft on the Niagara River, and you slowly notice the pitch start to changing little by little by little by little by little by little by little, bang, all at once. And if you pay attention to the things that are happening around the world, in particular with this coalition of countries that are finding safety in numbers that already represent north of 80% of human population, when you throw in the Belt Road Initiative with the BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the Eurasian Economic Union, you're talking 8 out of 10 people in the world. And these are countries that are not going green, and we are.